Sup YouTube, Born in Asphodel Meadow here, and I was just going to comment on Noel Plum 99's newest video. If you don't know who Noel Plum 99 is, check him out. He's awesome. Noel, or Mr. Plum, whichever it is. I was actually, it's kind of funny you should say it like that, the devil's advocate, because there was a point in my life, if I can share an anecdote, where I was born into a Christian family, but there was a point when I was about 10 years old that I started to doubt the logic behind God. I started to see faults in religion and stuff like that. So I looked at it objectively, without criticizing the existence of God, and I just went, okay, what are the roles that Satan and God play? And actually came to the conclusion that the devil was actually the one we should be rooting for, believe it or not. I'll explain to you my logic as a contribution to your video. So in the beginning, there was God and his angels, right? And one of his angels was named Lucifer. And one day, Lucifer came to God and said, listen, God, I'm not gonna lie, I don't really like the way you're running things here. I think, like, with what you're planning with this whole universe thing that you're gonna create, I mean, you're intending to commit genocide, you're intending to allow rape and incest, you intend to do so many horrible things to the people that you're going to create. I don't think that that's the thing we should be doing. I'm sorry, but I just don't. So look, I don't think you should be the one to do this. Let one of the other angels, or even myself, preferably myself, because I think I know how to do it, let us have a try, okay? We'll see what happens. And then God was like, damned, because that's how God works in my mind when I'm 10 years old. He just points at you, and then you're damned to hell for eternity, which is what he did, right? So that's a fair and just and loving God, right? First sign of rebellion, damnation. That's what he does. So, but anyway. And then, so later on, God makes the earth in 7 days, Adam and Eve and whatnot, and he puts them on the planet specifically to be the only two things in existence just so they can worship him. Right? Because that's what God does. He wants everything in existence to worship him because that's what caters to his ego. And he said, look, here's this tree with fruit. Don't eat from that tree, or I swear to God, swear to myself, okay? And then, so they were all like, okay, whatever, we don't know any better. So they were basically God's slaves. They were created specifically to be mindless drones to God. So the devil went up to them and was like, guys, look, it's the tree of knowledge, right? You guys don't know what's out there. You guys don't know anything about the world because God hasn't told you anything. So I think you should try some of the fruit. Just see what it's like. And then afterwards, if you still want to commit to God, you'll commit to God. And if not, then you'll know better and you'll be happier for it. You should be free. You shouldn't be a slave to God. So that seemed pretty reasonable to Eve, and she told it to Adam. Seemed pretty reasonable to him too. So they ate the fruit, and God was like, banned from Eden. So he kicked them out. Why? Because they thought for themselves. And that's what God does. God's a tyrant. God is a fascist son of a bitch. And he doesn't want anyone thinking against the way he thinks, against the way he wants them to think. So now they've been kicked out of Eden, right? And that eventually leads up to us today. The evidence for God, the Christian God anyway, is completely ridiculous at best. And of all the myriad of religions that we could choose from, we have to choose the right one, which is literally a 1 in infinity chance. Because not only are there the gods that we know of, we could make gods up randomly, and what if it turns out one of those gods is the right God? But anyway, so we've got to choose the right God out of literally an infinite number of gods. And then we have to follow all his laws our entire lives. Most importantly, we have to believe in him absolutely when we've never perceived him, or when every time we think we've perceived him is actually excusable as a misperception. And then, assuming we do this, assuming we follow his laws absolutely our entire lives, or when we don't follow his laws, we apologize for them, which is apparently just as good as not doing them. So after all that, we get to heaven, okay? And God says, all right, you're allowed in. But what about those people who don't get into heaven? The billions and billions of people who didn't worship the right God. God damn it, guessed wrong. And or what about the people who, let's just say, worked on a Sunday? because that's a sin. It's one of the 10 Commandments, and it's punishable by hell. So, sorry guys, if you worked on a Sunday, if you were a doctor or a surgeon and you had to work on a Sunday to save people's lives, you're going to hell. So then, what does God do? God, being the fair and loving God, sends them to hell where they can suffer for eternity just because they broke one of his laws and didn't apologize for it. So then they get to hell, and who is the one charged with the responsibility for them? The devil. The devil probably never asked to be steward of hell. The devil probably asked for a seat of power in heaven, but was denied it because God is a fascist. So he's forced to stay in hell and torture the souls of the people who God wants him to torture for the rest of eternity. And what does God symbolize in modern society? God symbolizes obedience. God symbolizes chastity. God symbolizes good through no other means than worshiping him. What does the devil symbolize? Freedom to act how we choose. Pleasure. Because God, we all know God's not exactly the most up and up on pleasure. Sex, drugs, nothing like that, we're not allowed to. But the devil would have us do it. The devil wants us to enjoy ourselves. The devil wants us to be free. The devil wants us to enjoy ourselves. The devil wants us to live how we want to live. Why should we worship a God who wants us to constrain ourselves against our nature for our entire lives just because he says so? Just because it caters to his ego, for no other reason than specifically to suck his God cock. And because I arrived at this conclusion, for like 6 months at least, I must have worshipped the devil. Not like praying for him and sacrificing animals, but if someone said, "Hey Michael, what is your opinion on religion?" I would have probably said, "I believe the devil should be in control." So, no, like seriously, that's what I believed. And I don't think anyone's really contradicted me on that so far, that is the proper course of action. Because if the devil was in power, how would the world be? It would be an entire planet of pleasure and freedom and hedonism and so much good stuff, and there would probably not be a punishment for it because God is the one who judges us, not the devil. The devil doesn't have a part in it. It's God who chooses what's right and what's wrong. You know what? I think we should dethrone God. Assuming you're not an atheist or an agnostic, you should be worshiping the devil, because the devil is in your corner. God's against you the whole way. But anyway, those are my thoughts on the subject. I'm Born on Asphodel Meadow. Peace, and I will see you guys later. Subscribe to me, and I'll tell you which one is the right religion.